All right, welcome all back to the To Be podcast. We're on episode 18 now, and I'm joined by a fellow speaker, Mr. Eric M. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Kyle. Thank you for having me on today.
That's okay. Now we connected we recently I was invited to a speaking event up in Brisbane for Stories that Stir, and you were the host, and we had a mutual connection after sharing my story, and you wanted to jump on, so I'm honored to have you on, brother. And I haven't really connected with you in depth myself, so I love to have these conversations with people just to provide wisdom, share a bit about your story and where you've come from to where you are now, and around specifically the personal development space, but also like your own wisdom you want to bring. So I'll ask like um who is Eric M?
Yeah, well, that's a good question to start with. I think for me, I try to embody many things in my life. So one is, gratitude, empathy, compassion, and I know they're quite, they might sound superficial, but I guess where I come from, well, I came to Australia with nothing. So when I was, a baby, essentially, mum and dad brought me here, and they basically, escaped from Cambodia to Vietnam, and then from, Vietnam on a boat, and then we were detained in a refugee camp in Malaysia for a couple of months. And through that, I guess, journey and, having the opportunity to come to Australia, one of my universal, I guess, themes or things that I feel is important in life is gratitude. And for me, it just means being grateful for many things, for the opportunity to live in a country where we're not persecuted, where our personal safety isn't compromised, just having access to, higher education and many of those things. So I try to instill that in my interactions, and it's just something that I feel is really important to, acknowledge as a person. So for me, the Eric M is a person, obviously I've got like my 9 to 5 hat on and my personal responsibilities, but I feel my identity is about, you know, giving space to others. And, at its core, it's just being thankful for, the things that I have in my life and, the people, the beautiful people that I'm surrounded with. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, look, thank you again for sharing, and it's grateful to have you here. And what's coming through right now is like I wanna share with the audience that are watching or listening, like what was your childhood like growing up? Like there's something that's coming through that I feel like gets to be shared on this. Explain like if you can in a few minutes, like what was your childhood like growing up before you come to Australia?
Yeah. So, I mean, I came here when I was small, and I grew up in outer suburban Melbourne. And look, Kyle, I would say my childhood, particularly my primary school years, were quite challenged. I was the only Asian kid at primary school at that time. And, if you could imagine, Kyle, back then, multiculturalism wasn't really prolific, particularly within, the outer suburbs of Melbourne. So I experienced, quite a bit of teasing and bullying and racism. So my childhood was, you know, at the early stages, I remember in prep and grade one, it was just trying to fit in because, I was, unique, in terms of my physical appearance and my cultural background. And look, I had really great mates in primary school, but there were people on the fringes which, didn't. accept, people from foreign cultures. And yeah, from an early age, I realized that, you know, even though that unique, people don't appreciate that uniqueness and, that perspective of coming from a foreign culture. So at an early age, yeah, I was always challenged and, just wanted to fit in and, be, one of the other kids in the classroom.
And how old were you when you come to Australia?
Yeah, so I was two, Kyle, and we ended up in a hostel.
Yeah.
So I think mum and dad told me we stayed in Box Hill, and look, they came with virtually nothing. They had no money. They just had the shirts on their back. They could barely speak English. So if you could imagine what that was like, for a young couple in their 30s to navigate, life in a new country and, just having to, come from conflict and, spend 3 months in a detention center. It was quite, for them, it was very courageous, brave, and, but, the gift was starting a new life in Australia.
Yeah, and I find a lot of people, specifically in Australia, like I don't know whether you've had this experience, but I know me personally, being born and raised in Australia, like there's a lot of people that complain about their environment they're in. Um, and look, I get it. I 100% get it. Like, I mean, I think there's a statistic in Australia that, correct, this is probably wrong or right, but I think it's over 70% of Australians never leave the country. And it's wild when you think about it. Like, there's a whole another world. And when people complain about the smallest things, and from your experience, you've come from a country that is going through whatever it's going through, and like what's going on right now in the world. Now we are in 2025. Like, I just find it so, like, the gratitude, as you said, like the gratitude of being where you are, having this life you get to live. And why would you complain about the smallest thing? Like, you could be complaining about someone's, like, what someone says to you. I get it. Someone says to you, or whether your car's parked in the wrong spot. When there's other countries that there's wars going on, there's people trying to survive just to live, people with no clothes, and it's like, we as Australians and we as a society in the world in general should come back to that two pieces: compassion and gratitude. Like, I mean, gratitude is the ultimate form of receivership, and when you can become grateful for something, when you can become grateful for who you are, everything else just becomes a distant memory, right? Like, and you've probably learnt that growing up from that, coming to Australia, learning, you've had to learn your way through some things in your life that have allowed you to become the man today. And like, if you had one piece of advice for Eric, let's say the 2-year-old Eric, from what you've learned throughout your journey of life and your self-discovery, like, what would that piece of advice be, or that thing that's coming through that would allow you to be grateful for that as well?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Carl. I think for me, it would be telling myself, my 2-year-old self, be who you are, be proud of who you are. Don't um, move away from your true identity. And it's important to, always retain your personal values and, act righteously. And look, yeah, the primary school years were tough, but yeah, in high school I got a bit better, and I had, other Asian friends and friends of different cultures, so I kind of feel that it blended out. And then university was an absolute melting pot when I, studied and did my double degrees. There was people from everywhere, so I kind of um, did like came to fruition, and everything took a 360-degree turn. And as you're right, Kyle, like we can complain and just get overwhelmed by like the smallest things, very superficial first world problems. What am I going to eat? What am I going to wear today? Um, I can't have this, at the shops, etc. But yeah, we have to be, very grateful that we live in a safe country. We've got, really good health care. We've got access to quality education, and we're not being shot at. So what else would there be to complain about? And I resonate with your words, with the contrast that that's what's happening in,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like I understand like where people are coming from because I remember being in a space like that myself, and it's like until there's moments that happen in life, you really got to shift your mentality, shift your emotional state, and get out of that state. And you only do that by discovering who you are on a deeper level, by also changing your environment, and by also embracing what is to come and not dwelling on it and being grateful for opportunity as well. So was there a moment in your life where you felt you wanted to speak on stages, for example? Like
yeah.
what was the
Look,
defining moment for you?
yeah, the defining moment, I guess, was a couple of years ago, when I went through relationship severance, and I became a single dad. And I kind of, looked inwards, and looked at different aspects of my life, and where I wanted to improve. And the driver for me was, um, when I was sitting down with mum and dad, or, when I went down to visit for Christmas, and they basically told me the full end-to-end story of how, we got to Australia. Because when I was a kid, I only heard bits of it. We jumped on a boat, or this is where we stayed, and this is, how we came to Australia. So I didn't really grasp the full impact and the gravity of what they had to go through. And for me, I kind of feel that, it comes back to the gratitude and compassion piece, that because they're getting older, English isn't their first language. There has to be a way to share this story. And so, I began that journey to, uplift my public speaking. So I did, one-on-one coaching, and I, attended Speakers Institute boot camp, and then I joined Speakers Tribe. And then, like what you did, I shared my story on Stories That Stir Brisbane in August last year, and that was the first time that I shared my origin story about coming to Australia as a refugee. And for me, it's about self-empowerment, but it's also sharing the message that, even though that we're unique and we might come from different origins, at its core, we're all human beings, and we're part of the human family.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's like that biggest thing is connection. And I know for me, many people I've shared it on this podcast. That's essentially why I created the podcast is for people to really understand like everyone goes through something in their life, no matter where you come from. But the ultimate thing I wanted to share with people is like people's stories can make a difference in other people's lives. And for many years, I shut myself down because I used to get shut down. Because the moment I expressed my truth, the moment I shared something that was very uncomfortable for people, they would shut me down. So I lived my whole life up until I was 20, was it 20, 28, 27. And when I shared that story, Stories of Stir was like a piece that landed for me. I lived my life with not saying anything, not sharing my truth, not expressing my feelings, not expressing my thoughts. And it led me to a place of hatred. Like I hated myself because I couldn't speak up. And now I've come to a space in my life where I don't care what I say, as long as it feels true to me within my heart. I mean, obviously there's ego that comes into play. There's all those things that come into play. And now I'm really discerning with what I share. But as long as I feel the connection between my brain and my heart, then I'm able to share that. And this is something that it's taken a lot of work, and I'm sure you would agree. Like the inner work is like it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of finding the word for it, and you might be able to shed some light on it. Like it takes a lot of, I would not say obviously a lot of balls is one, but like a lot of the courage is the biggest one. It takes a lot of courage to actually get up on stage and share something very vulnerable, something very emotional to someone that hasn't heard it before. And the biggest piece is letting that land for people so they can feel it in their heart. So they can get the incremental shifts that they need to experience in order for them to either shift something in their life, become aware of something they never thought of before, or even project them to a high level. And that's what this is all about. Like this podcast is like that. Stories that stir, I feel, is like very much similar to that. Is like bringing that connection back to people because at the end of the day, we're all connected. Whether you feel like you're disconnected, whether you feel like you're not associated with anything, we're still connected as a whole collective. And you've got to have that disconnection in order to get the connection back, right? You've got to have that space and time for yourself in order to come back to your truth, come back to your essence, come back to your gratitude within who you are and where you're heading. Wherever you are, it's a big thing that people take for granted, but they also are afraid to speak and share their truth because of what other people will say. And yes, there's a level of discernment which I'm only learning now because I love to share, but I sometimes share way too much, and it's really detrimenting my whole, I guess, authority piece. At the same time, though, I'm now consciously aware of it, of what I can, what I should share, what I shouldn't share. So it's a big piece of truth and wisdom and compassion and courage to do that. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Kyle. I resonate with your self transformation journey, and I certainly agree about being authentic, and I definitely resonate with you that getting on stage is something that it brings out that level of vulnerability, and it can show your good but also your bad parts. So to step on stage and pick up the mic, it's not for everyone, and it's not easy. And look, you did a brilliant job at Stories That Stir back in May, and we had that theme of determination. And I kind of feel that the parallel with your story, particularly with um, having that part of you being suppressed, or people telling you not to um share, or be vulnerable. I can see elements of that through my own journey when I was a kid. And also it took me almost 4 decades to want to share my origin story in public. So as you said, it takes that leap of faith, and that, courage, vulnerability, and that essence to want to um, help other people, because, your story is personal to you, and my story is unique to me. But, what it serves is like a metaphor. And traditionally, if you look back, in how, you know, humans gathered and how they shared wisdom, during the tribal times, they would gather around, fires, and the elders would, share stories of, their previous leaders, and their past elders. So it's something very powerful that we can always nurture, is, the power of storytelling, and how that can impact others. And I certainly resonate, with your podcast and with other platforms that allows individuals for self-expression. I think it's so important.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like that's that piece we were chatting earlier. We had to reschedule a couple of times around like the men's mental health side of it. And it's a big piece that I
Yeah.
know you probably resonated with around being vulnerable in front of an audience. Like it's okay to speak up. It's okay to share your feelings, and it's the leading cause of suicide in men is the fact that they feel like they can't because they don't want to be perceived as weak. And I've spoken to actually in the space of the last 2 months, I've spoken to three individuals. Like one of them, my mum's ex-partner, one of her
Mm.
ex-partners committed suicide a couple of months ago. Another one, a friend of mine's ex-partner committed suicide. So it's like this paradox that happens within men that they feel like they can't share their thoughts. They feel like they can't share their thoughts, their feelings. And it's I thought there may be some changes, but obviously it's still happening, which is why I love this work, which is why I love sharing this information with people. Because no matter what you're going through, whether you're a man or whether you're a female, no matter what you're going through, it's okay to speak up. And if you are a female listening to this and watching this, it's being able to have people in your life that can hold space for that. Um, and that's one of the biggest things. A lot of females feel like they can't share because they've been shut down themselves from the masculine. And same goes with males. Like it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, true. And very important point, particularly with mental health awareness, not just men, but women. And uh, it's really important to me to be an advocate for mental health. I know through my corporate job, I stepped up as a touch-based peer supporter. So the idea of that program is to just help your colleagues and just be that ear to listen when people are struggling. It could be anything. It could be their own personal mental health, financial hardship, or just relationship issues that they might be having external to work. But the biggest takeaway for me, Kyle, is um, we obviously weren't or were provided with frameworks and tools that we could recommend. However, for me, the most powerful thing that we can do in those moments is, as you mentioned, just check in on people and just listen. Don't judge. Just listen, be present. And there's so much power in listening to people and, just having that heart to heart conversation. Um, and another aspect of my journey is, I got involved in men's work. So I found a men's work community. I went on a retreat and, looking at my purpose, and one of the biggest aspects of that men's work was, connection, particularly men connecting with men and men having safe space to talk and to be vulnerable and to, share some of their concerns and their deepest, darkest fears. And, I certainly, applaud you for, going to those spaces as well, because I think it's really important, particularly for men in our modern society, to be able to open up and have those safe environments where they can share anything and not be judged. Yeah. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I love those environments. I'm also for having conversation whether you're at a cafe or having open conversations of like men holding other men and not putting them down, not trying to have a competition like between who's better and who's not better. Because at the end of the
Mm,
day, no one's better than anyone. We're all on our own journeys, and it may take another man several years, it may take another man only a couple of years. They've got to obviously discover that within themselves. But those spaces are so important, and which is why I love personal development. I love like the essence of it because it allows you to feel liberated and you feel much
mm,
better within yourself. You're much more freer, which if you keep all those internal thoughts and all those internal emotions suppressed, you end up lashing out, you end up having bad habits, you end up finding addictions, the toxic things happen. And look, it's okay if you're either starting a journey or whether you're on your journey, but at the same time, know that you can share. You should be able to share with other men. And if they don't want to listen to you, well then change your environment. It's not that
Yeah,
hard to change your environment. It's just about take having the courage to actually take that step and get uncomfortable because it's going to be uncomfortable. Like when I first started, I'm sure you'd agree. When we first start this inner menswear in a journey, it's like very uncomfortable, and you've got to lean into that and then embrace that. And then once you get on the other side of that, it just becomes this flow of energy, of synergy.
mm, yeah, I love that metaphor, Kyle. It's a flow of synergy, and yeah, it's opening up, being able to lean into that vulnerability and taking that first step. Because yeah, if I didn't take that first step, join the community and enroll in a retreat, I would be stuck where I was 5 years ago. And that's really important, is to encourage men to, take that leap of faith and, find those secure places where, they can share what's on their mind and be vulnerable and not be judged. So I really resonate with that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and look, that's the biggest thing is I think that's a great thing to wrap up on. Not being judged. And for people that are like, where can they find you? Like, what's anything you've got going on at the moment you're working on? Like, what's your social?
Yeah, look, I'm on all the socials, so Eric M, LinkedIn, Instagram, and also Facebook. If you want to connect with me on any of those platforms, and look, while I've got the airtime, we're doing stories that stir potentially again in August. We haven't decided on the theme, so if anyone within your audience, your followers, Kyle, they want to put in their application for the next event, then please do so. Just jump on the website, Stories That Stir, and submit your application. So thanks very much for having me on today, Kyle.
Cool, no dramas. I may have a couple people in mind that have asked me, so I'll definitely reach out and let them know, and I'll put all your socials in the links. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and thank you again for love having you on, and honor you for your journey and celebrating you from where you've come.
Thank you, Kyle. Much appreciated.